Welcome back to the MetaMinds podcast, where we help you master your mindset. My name's Dan, I'm a fully qualified counsellor.
And my name's Eamon and I run a video production business.
And on today's episode, we had Lindsey Leigh Hobson. She runs Stick It. She's also a motivational speaker and a marketing professional. And her goal is to help empower 1 million young adults to break the mold.
Yeah, it was an awesome episode. We talked about so much in 30 minutes. There's a lot of value in there. We talked about her backstory, a little bit about how she got into marketing, and then how she got into life coaching, essentially, without any kind of official written university degree, which is fascinating. So now she's helping a lot of people achieve their goals, and she's very humble. So yeah, it was a great guest.
It was, and we learned a lot about the concept of breaking the mold and how really you can reframe your mind regardless of the situation was kind of what I got from that. And she told us a lot about the trauma that she had gone through, and then basically told us a little bit about the marketing as well. And near the end there, we did speak about the motivational speaking, as public speaking is a very common fear for a lot of people. So that was interesting for me as well to hear about motivational speaking and how you can build your confidence in that arena.
So enjoy this podcast.
All right, so you're a motivational speaker and you work in a marketing role as well. Mm-hmm. So would you just be able to give us a little bit of an origin story about like how that all came about and where these interests came from? Were you interested in marketing early on? Were you interested in speaking early on? I'd just love to know about how that all started.
Well, marketing was my backup plan in high school. So if I didn't discover like my true passion in inverted commas, I was going to go into marketing. But I went, hey, beauty therapy feels like the way I should be going. So I spent 3 years in that, and marketing was always just what I was potentially going to do if that didn't work out. And from there, I discovered life coaching. I was driving to my beauty job, and it was on the radio for training to be a life coach. And I had this thought, I'm like, what the hell is that? And then I looked it up, and I'm like, that is so stupid. Like, I didn't know this was a career. And I thought it was the dumbest career I'd ever heard. But me being me, like a week later, I signed up for it.
They got you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Life coaching, right? It's culty. Yeah. And I was really into it and I loved it. And so I started my business about a week after I started my training, because you can do one-on-one. And it was just crazy intense. And it was through that I found public speaking, and through the marketing of my company, or the lack thereof, because I was really bad at marketing. I had no skills and no understanding. I was like, hey, if I make a website, people would just magically come to it somehow and buy and join up for my membership, and trying to solve the world that way. So it came up, my marketing came up through there, because when my business my first business about 8 years ago in coaching started to go down. So it's like, if you're wanting to speak, you need to have something to talk about. And I never spoke about myself. I was just preaching, and you cannot do that as a life coach. If you want to preach at people and tell them things, that's not how you connect and how you make a difference. So it started to suffocate, because people were saying to me, we really love what you do, but who are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll be able to connect to you more and get more benefit. And I went, we're here to talk about your future, not my past. You don't need to know anything about me. And that was my arrogance of youth, I guess. So my business suffocated, and I went, all right, what can I do now? And that's when I'm like, all right, well, backup plan was marketing, and I loved it. It took me a little while to get into it, because I didn't have a qualification, but in Australia, you don't need one. Experience is just as valuable. So I was in like operations management for quite a while in a couple of different companies, and I finally got the title ops and marketing manager. And from there, I was able to transition into a full-time marketing role, and I just loved it. It was crazy good, and it's fast-paced enough. It keeps me interested. I can't sit still for too long. I'm not good at it. I'm not even good in the same desk for more than a couple of hours. I have to get up and walk
10 minutes
around.
into the podcast, you just
yeah, that's it. I'm gone. I'm sorry. You need to we'll come back later.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at that, but marketing's so fast-paced. You can't learn it all at all ever, and it's always developing quicker than you can learn. So you have to have people in a network, and it's like being part of its own little cult, like life coaching. So I was in that for quite a while, and that's how the part-time marketing stuff is still existing, because obviously while you're building a coaching business and a speaking business, you still need to have that income coming in. Otherwise, I'll just be repeating the mistakes I made the first time, which was not to do that. So that's how I got into both at once.
Mm-hmm. And I guess also you're learning valuable skills that in turn can build your brand, and 100%. It's ever-changing as well. So is your ultimate plan to get to a point that you are running a business, or do you kind of always want to learn the marketing alongside that?
I'll always be a sucker for marketing, but I will definitely at one stage, when I can, say goodbye to a role for someone else in marketing. it's one of those things where if you're really passionate about it, people always seek you out. So I'll always be having those conversations, but I don't intend on making money off it or working for someone else in a marketing role. It's just not my path. It's going to go marketing, coaching, speaking, and speaking throughout the whole thing, but the long-term goal is to speak. So
yeah, cool. And it was also really valuable to hear the idea that, when and this is a preconceived kind of notion or a wrong notion, that when you put something out on the internet, especially with such a saturated space, it will just blow up or you'll just become successful.
Overnight millionaire. Woo.
Yeah, exactly. But it's refreshing to hear because people still think that to this day, that you put something out and it may be a fantastic idea and there's nothing taking away from that. But obviously it does take your heart and your energy. You've got to invest that time in to get it out there.
Yep, traffic is the bane of my life, and it'll be the bane of anyone's life. And I'm sure you guys feel the same sort of way. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it. Trying to get in front of people all the time, and I think that's the thing. If you have a physical shop front, because the online world is just a mirror of the physical world. If you have a physical shop front, unless people are walking past it by accident, they're not going to go in. They're not going to know it's there. They're not going to know it exists. So you can't just open a shop and do nothing. You got to tell people, and online is the same thing. So traffic's so hard, but anyway, it's part of it.
I suppose the problem with that is a lot of people, the way marketing is, they kind of present it in a way where they haven't done all that, so it makes it look like it can be easy to have an overnight success, and that is a huge problem with marketing in any, like Shopify. Those kinds of things are really big because it's I'm a millionaire at 17 or whatever, and it's nobody tells you exactly how they got to that position. I posted a Facebook ad one day and then everyone bought my, so that's a huge problem with that.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. And I mean, that's my pet peeve. You're in all these entrepreneur groups because I hang out on Facebook a lot. That's where my whole thing is. And you're in all these groups and I made money overnight and I got my first client in 6 weeks. And you're good for you. But reading between the lines, I can see that's not true, and also knowing what I know. And I run that meetup every month and I book it out every time, but I don't do it just because I post a meetup. I message every single person, invite them to my group, and then I message everyone that joins the group and invite them to my event and have all these conversations. And that's how you book up space. That's how you get traffic. It's got nothing to do with just throwing it out there and seeing what sticks. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun, actually, because you talk to some cool people like you guys. That's how I met you, Dan. So
thank you. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you're driving along in your car one day and this ad literally grabs you and you decide to do a life coaching course. What was it that was the driving force that makes you go, oh, I want to be a life coach? Is it that you want to, be that millionaire clout person with gold chains or whatever?
And the Maserati.
Or do you want to help people? What is the ultimate goal? What's about that to you?
So my sort of backstory on a personal level is what drove me to it. So my parents got divorced when I was 11, and up until that point, that was I had a really happy home. I was an only child, but I didn't know any better. And when that happened, it was quite emotional, and my parents, it wasn't a neat and clean situation. I mean, that they ever really, but it wasn't. And the next 5 years, I became estranged from my dad, and my anxiety blew up, and my life was like something off the Dr. Phil show with stepdad and all sorts of things, stereotypical story. But my anxiety was so bad in that time. I was 15, 16, and going along my stepdad's bar because he had a lot of alcohol and taking a sip out of everything to be able to get to sleep at night, and that's how I was managing. And it wasn't until one day, this whole time I'm thinking, gosh, everyone's so unhappy, and I thought I'd caused it because of something that my mum had said in Goodwill during that moment when they told me they got divorced. They're like, we love you, but it's definitely not your fault that we're getting divorced. And I just went, are you sure? I didn't realise that there was any sort of consequences to actions until that point in time, good or bad, and it was just, I have that sort of brain where I was mulling over it for 5 years, and then eventually it came to the point where I thought I had caused, the reason I wasn't talking to my dad was because I thought it was me, and, obviously I played a part, but it wasn't the end of the world, and all the sadness and unhappiness and, depression in my family, I thought that was because of me. So I got to that point in time and I went, I'm just not happy, and I'm not making my family happy, and if they have a chance at happiness, then I will just remove myself out of life. And so that was my plan. And I went, I'm just going to tidy my room first, because at least I can do one good thing for my mum, who loves a neat and tidy bedroom. And so that's what I was doing. I was actually tidying my room and thinking, all right, so I'm going to tidy this, and then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to go kill myself. We've got guns in the gun cabinet, not that I know where the keys were, but there's, drowning, there's all sorts of things you can do. And I was trying to plan it out, and I was cleaning my room, and I had just one thought go through my head. And it was, what if you're wrong? What if this had nothing to do with you? And what if the only thing that it had to do with, or your responsibility in any of it, was your choice to be there or not. So I left home a week later, and that one moment changed my life. And I was 16, just completely changed my life. I felt so trapped and like there was just nothing, like just absolute nothing. And I saw one little tiny sort of bit of light coming through the cracks, and I took it and I grabbed onto it. And now I want to show other people that they can have that too. You know, life is full of opportunities, but the problem is we live in these bubbles and we think that what we think is the only version of things that there are. And through that experience, I learned that it's just not true. And you can have so much more in your life. You just can't see that opportunity in front of you. You know, it's the same way that if you just suddenly decide you want a red car, suddenly all you see is red cars everywhere. It's that thing. But if you're not thinking about it, your mind's not going to be able to process it. So it's for that reason I decided to be a life coach. Always wanted to make a difference, but I went into beauty, and why I thought it was, you know, my passion was because I wanted to help people, make them feel good. I could literally only do that on a skin level, skin deep level, like literally.
Which is also superficial, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like, on some level.
And I'm not admitting to myself during this time what's going on, and I'm not talking to anyone, and no one knew that I'd made that decision except for like a couple of my best friends and my boyfriend at the time. You know, no one knew that about me up until Stick It was launched. That's the first time I told the world. And that's potentially the first time even my parents heard it, like other than my counselors and things, nothing. So yeah, through that, life coaching came up, and I was ready to do more than skin deep, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah, love it. I suppose it's like you mentioned the bubbles, and it's so interesting because it's like the brain is so powerful, but yeah, it can just kind of come up with one story and then tunnel vision and then lock itself in that tunnel
100%.
vision. And it's like, it can just take the one thing, whether it's cleaning a room or whatever it is, like to change that perception and reframe something in your mind. And it's like, so funny. You can kind of like, if you can take a step back and just see for a second the little outer bits, then you might be able to, you know, but there's so many different things that can kind of reframe that in your mind. But more often than not, your brain's like, nah, this is the perception. So here I am. And you can't kind of get out of it by yourself without like something else. So yeah, thank you for sharing. That's really...
My pleasure. Yeah, my absolute pleasure. And there's so much out there, and that's the thing. And so that's what Stick It is all about, is showing that there are more opportunities, and, you know, someone's got to be out there spreading that message. I know there are a lot of people but everyone's unique in their branding, so that's my purpose, I guess.
Definitely. Sure. And also it's something that so many people experience as well, like this, all on their different levels, but trauma is something that's obviously spread so far and wide, and the idea of isolation and not being able to kind of talk about it is probably one of the bigger problems that doesn't help someone reflect on it and kind of break through that trauma. Yeah. And I guess from what I'm hearing also is that Stick It is potentially also a community for people to be able to connect and to be able to, as the slogan is, break the mold. Yeah. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about break the mold, how that came about, and that concept. Like, what does that concept actually mean to you?
Yeah, it is the fancy or a not fancy way of saying if you are feeling trapped, you can break free from that. So I tend to focus on anxiety and mental health, you know, that's been dealt with by a psychologist, and they're ready to step it up and help other people with it. And people who aren't sure what they want to do with the rest of their lives, but have that burning desire deep down inside them that they want to do something, but have no idea what that looks like. And, you know, I did a lot of research and talked to a lot of people before I founded Stick It. And our generation in particular, you know, our parents worked really, really hard for us, like so hard for us to provide all the things that they didn't have to, or didn't have the opportunity to do, or had to fight for. And they've, as a result, you know, created this really beautiful but almost insular environment for us. And a lot of the people that I spoke to, and I spoke to hundreds, especially in the older generations, felt like our generation had been robbed of risk and the ability to understand our own consequences. It's because we didn't have those opportunities to go out and break bones and, you know, do all those types of things that make you a kid and make you able to understand your own limits. And so as a result, we're not necessarily willing to take a risk because we don't know if we can handle the consequences and what they could be, because we've never had that experience. And on the other side of that, we don't know enough about ourselves, so we've just got this desire to do something and no understanding of how to actually implement that. So the community of Stick It and the revolution that I've created is a safe place to figure that out and understand you don't have to have these answers, because if you think you're going to have these answers first, you're going to wait your entire life. You've got to go out there and do something and take calculated risk and be courageously curious, if I can ever say that right, and actually do something with your life one step at a time. and not worry whether you get to the end and have all the answers, but worry if you get to the end and you have a life you're proud of or not. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
All right, we'll end the podcast there.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. So when it comes to the clients that you work with or the people that are involved in your courses, are you exclusively working with younger adults, or are you open to all different age ranges?
Open to all different age ranges. Funnily enough, the midlife crisis that so many of us experience, it's the same thing. It's only they've tried something and gone down the wrong path, wrong in inverted commas. You know, they feel like it's not actually in alignment with who they are. So I attract a wide range of people, despite the fact that I purely market to young adults. The last meetup I had, there was 2 or 3 people there that looked to be over the age of 70, you know. So they were, and they loved it because it's all about, you know, the premise is all about understanding who you are and that being the foundation for the life you want, because the thoughts and the feelings you're aware of are just so small compared to everything else going on in your mind, and it's everything else that you don't know is there, which is actually creating that life for you and leading the way and all those sorts of things. So it tends to be everybody, but on the other hand, I just market to young adults because that's where I'm at in my life. So
it seems to be a very common theme that it's like nobody has it figured out, and that's something that's been huge that we've gotten out of this podcast, that someone that's, you know, 50 comes on and they're like, you know what, I'm just starting to get a handle on life, and we're like, god damn it. So it's really good to see that it's like, you know, you're forever changing, and like whatever actions and things, you know, like you could lose one thing in one moment and you're so heavily identified with that it's like all of a sudden you don't know who you are anymore, and that kind of thing. So everyone's just trying to figure it out one step at a time, I suppose. So kind of on that note, you know, you're very young and you have an online course and you don't have, you know, actual, like a degree in kind of self-help or, you know, counseling or psychology and that kind of thing. Have you been through your own struggles of imposter syndrome, or, you know, have you had anybody kind of like question your status in the type of person that can actually teach these things?
Yeah, not so much with Stick It, but the first time round, yes. So I am a qualified coach, but people looked at me beforehand. Now I'm a bit harder to tell what age I am other than young. Beforehand, I was very clearly 20, 21, 22 and very clearly young. So whilst now I have the confidence from all those things to go, no, this is what I'm doing, and really own that, and I feel like it's a little bit different because of that. But previously, that was one of my biggest struggles, and not willing to share or anything like that. So yeah, like yes is the answer, but not right now, because the way, though the challenges life has thrown at me, I've had to really sort of confidence up or not bother. So I haven't had too many troubles now though. But
Okay. And also when it comes to, you're saying that this is like a relatively new thing. I think, I don't know if you mentioned it just then, because obviously we had a conversation before.
Yeah,
but you said Stick It's been around for 5 months, is that correct?
Yeah, Stick It's 5 months, yeah.
And then you said you launched your course end of December, is that right?
A couple of days after Christmas.
Just after Christmas.
Yeah, like the day after Boxing Day, I think it was the day I launched it, with the first intake at the start of Jan, first Monday in Jan, which is, you know, anyone out there who knows anything about marketing, yeah, you don't do that.
But New Year's resolution.
Yeah, why not?
It. Yeah, that's it.
You're trying to break the mold. You know, maybe that's a preconceived notion and you're trying to change that. Who knows?
True, that's true. It's just not when people are thinking about buying. But I did manage to actually have people in that. So
yeah. So I guess I'm curious, like when it comes to the course itself, how did you kind of develop that concept?
So the 28-day transformation, which is the course, was something that, before I even officially launched Stick It, it was a workbook that I was creating, which I was going to use to launch Stick It. And then I went, I don't need to do that. That's just holding me back. Like, I'm using this as a way to procrastinate instead of actually get the word out there, because the market will tell you what they want. What the market wanted was an online course. So I actually had all the content for it. I had to put it all together in a different form. It was just like the juicy bits that I had, but the journey, so it's like a 4-week journey in that of learning who you are and what's holding you back and letting it go, and then realizing where you're actually at physically, and then realizing where you want to go next, whether that's the memories you want to create or the goals. Because not everybody, I don't know if you guys have found this, actually likes goals.
Yeah, true. Yeah, 100%.
Some people really put off with it.
And especially if you're like, you know, both of us are in that kind of bubble of like, we do like goals and we are that kind of thing. So when we meet someone that you know, isn't really on that vibe and is kind of content having a life that isn't, you know, constantly crushing or whatever, we're kind of like, wait, what does that mean? Like, you know what I mean? So you're right.
Yeah. And I've had that with some of my clients through counseling, where I will present the concept of goals, and they'll straight up tell me, like, I actually don't like goals. So then we have to kind of work through something that works for them.
Got you with that one.
And I'm just like, oh, okay, then let's figure out something that works for you.
Yeah,
it could be
right.
a visual prompt. It could be,
Yeah.
you know, even artwork. I've had clients who like artwork that can be something that is instilled in their kind of their reality of what their preferred self is, and that's something that they see every day, and in turn kind of try to work towards values that align with whatever that vision is to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of having a goal or writing it down, because again, writing is another thing. Like, not everyone likes to write things down.
No, not everybody does. It's so strange. It never occurred to me until I launched the transformation, and we had people in the third week of it and going, well, goals don't motivate me. How do I stay motivated? I'm like, well, it's memories, it's experiences. Somebody said since then challenges. They're really motivated by challenges. So they picked 3 challenges that they wanted to do, which I thought was really good. But yeah, other than that, I was like, I'd never heard of that. I just assumed that everybody wanted goals, because that's what the hustle and the grind and all that sort of thing. And that's when
what's put out there.
Yeah, it's when I really went, okay, I need to stop talking about hustling and grinding and actually talk about why you shouldn't do that if that's not in alignment with who you are. It just never occurred to me, you know, and that comes back to living in your own bubble, like we we're just talking about. So.
But I suppose it's like, that's a great point in that everything's a learning process, you know, like you could have sat around and procrastinated and be like, you know, one day I'm going to do this or whatever, and never actually learned that about your market. The only reason you've learned that is because you've launched a course and now listen to your audience and that kind of thing, and now you can refine whatever's next and go from there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to also like running the course, obviously it's, like you mentioned, very individualistic. So each person has their own individual needs. So is it a one-on-one coaching course that you do, or do you do group for the 28-day transformation? How does that actually unfold?
So the transformation's designed to be a community feel. So I have a Facebook group, and there's everybody in that. So whether they're in the transformation or just been interested in what I'm doing, but everybody's in that. So there's the community there, but I've had people say, because of that community vibe, and at the end of each week we catch up in a group coaching session, so you get to actually see people if they have their videos on and chat to people as well and get help with whatever you're struggling with. I do private sessions too, and that's for people that want the next level results and the faster results and don't want to have to have that experience of sharing with everybody, because so many people hate that too. But the 28-day transformation has been set up to be a community vibe, and you're going through this together, and that has been, everyone's really liked that. I wasn't sure how it would go, to be honest, and I wasn't sure if I'd have to break out and do like individual touching bases. No, the community vibe. So yeah, there is group coaching at the end of each week, so they go through 1 week, see how I feel about it. The other thing I found is that not everybody goes through it in 28 days, and that's okay. So once you've got it, you don't lose access to it. You know, you've always got those links you can revisit anytime. No one has actually done it in the 28 days bar one person, because everybody wants to take a bit more time with it and go back to it at certain points. And so it's always been maybe 35-ish at the most. So it's always been close, but everybody works to their own timetable and they'll get it done. It's been very impressive.
Well, that's good, I suppose, because like with online courses specifically, like I suppose you are touching base with them in person, but it's like part of it is like you can give them all the information, but obviously you want them to take action on that thing. So it's like I've heard that like part of it can be actually the hard thing is to get them to actually take the action, because some people will buy a course, even watch the course, and then just not actually take the action, you know. So
it's so true, and it's such, epidemic's a very strong word, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs, inverted commas, out there who are like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start a business, I'm just waiting to have more money, but they're still calling themselves entrepreneurs. And it's like, well, an entrepreneur is someone who, you know, succeeds and actually creates the change in whatever minute way that may be. It's not someone who talks about it. And that was really hard in getting traffic, going right the way back to that conversation, because there's a lot of people who want to talk to you about philosophical things and psychological things, but don't want to actually ever do anything about it.
Right.
And so there's a lot of people who just want to chat, which is amazing.
And it starts with minimize.
Yeah.
No, but chatting is amazing. But when it comes to doing an online course, chatting about it and doing it are not the same thing.
Yeah.
And so in that space, it doesn't work. So it's been good to cut through that and know that the people in the course will finish it in their own time.
I'm really curious about the motivational speaking and when it comes to public speaking. Now, this is probably coming from my own insecurities, but also it's a very common fear to fear public speaking. So for you, how did that process go about? Like, obviously, you've told us before that you've spoken on stages in front of lots of people, and it's something you've maintained for a long time. Now, was it hard when you initially started that? Like, what kind of advice would you have for people who do have that fear?
Yeah, and almost everybody does. And I don't know if it's only child syndrome, you know, look at me, but I just like, there's something really special about being up on stage and being able to help everybody in the room. And I can sit here and I can talk to you and help you make a change one-on-one. But if I could do that en masse, like that's incredible. You know, that's really fulfilling. So for people that are frightened of it or scared of it or put off by it, it's helping them debug their myths, really. You know, something's bad's going to happen to them is often what they think, or they're going to fall over or say something. And figuring out what it is for them is like the key thing, and then also making it easy. Because it's one of those things where your emotions and your logic come together and mush together and make life really hard, and you need those strategies before that happens so that when that happens, you can see the forest through the trees. So it's helping them do that, and it comes down to everybody being different again. So for some people it's writing, for some people it's just practicing it 100 times, for some people it's having you standing next to the stage, which was one I had about 6 months ago, actually standing next to the stage and feeling like you were there with them, even though you weren't on shot or anything like that. It just comes down to making them comfortable and then taking the training wheels off, which they'll just naturally do anyway. So it's not sort of one advice fits all, but it's figuring out why you're scared of it and then helping you demystify that and helping you experience that in a way that suits you with the tools and the strategies, so that when your cloudy mind and fluffy mind comes in, you're already empowered and you can see what's really going on instead of just living in that fear. So
yeah, aside from all that, we just like to laugh at ourselves at MetaMinds as well. You know, like that definitely really helps. Like if we make a mistake or if we're trying to present a concept or something, like we just laugh, you know? It's like, then everyone will either laugh with you or at you, you know what I mean? But either way, you're like, anyway, moving on to the next
one.
It's a
laugh.
You know?
That's
so
it,
like,
Exactly.
you gotta be having fun, I suppose, is what I'm like getting to. You know?
100%. If it's not fun, why bother? It's everything in life, you know?
So a bit of a nerdy marketing question. Like obviously you're putting out an online course in the self-help space, which we have a little bit of experience with. But yeah, you're actually in the kind of online course space. Like, what have you learned specifically about the self-help industry or self-development industry, and has a lot of any competition kind of scared you away or stopped you from doing that? Is there a lot of competition in Australia specifically? Like
Australia, in America, yes. So America is a whole different ballgame. Australia, as with so many things, is really far behind. So you'll notice there's actually not too many motivational speakers that are really killing it in Australia. So within itself, this is within the country, it's a little bit different what I'm offering. As soon as you spread that further, it does become a bit samey, but they're also more cluey. So they're less frightened of it because it's not a new thing to them. Whereas in Australia, people tend to be like, so how does it work and what's going to happen? And, you know, am I going to turn into a frog? Like, is it all going to, henny penny? But overseas, they know what questions to ask, what to expect, and more willing to say yes to those types of things. The major thing I've learned is there is a huge need for help in third world countries. So they have the technology to be able to have all these conversations, but not the means to be able to get the help. There's not really any free online courses that I can find that will really help that transformation. So there's a lot of people out there asking for money and asking for business ideas who have that entrepreneurial spirit, don't have the means in the country to actually do anything about it, but have the ability to have the conversations. And as a result, there's a lot of feeling isolated, not feeling great. And right now with where I'm at in the journey I'm on, it's not something that I can personally help with other than to be there for them and, you know, push them towards the Facebook group and be like, hey, there's a safe place for you to chat about whatever you want, always here for you. But that's the major thing I've learned. It's just there's this massive need for somebody to go out there and help these people that want to do it but just can't right now. So it's been a really massive eye-opener. I had no idea.
Yeah, okay. So for people out there who are feeling maybe isolated or trapped or lost, what kind of initial advice could you give these people to break that mold?
Yeah, so if you're feeling trapped, the first presupposition, speaking NLP now, that you're making is that you have all the answers. And if you feel like or begin to understand that you don't have all the answers and put yourself on the journey to find them, they're there for you. And if you're saying, you know, I can't do this, I don't have options, I'm not able to, you know, mum won't take me, this won't happen, I'm not smart enough for school, and you're feeling trapped for all these reasons, understand that you are actually putting yourself in that situation. And by opening your mind, and you don't have to know to what, because if you did, that would be redundant. You don't know what you're going to find, but opening your mind to that and understanding that that's a self-perpetuating situation, and looking outside the box, because you have no idea what you're actually going to find out there. And by knowing that you have no idea, you'll begin to become a bit of a yes man in a positive way, and you'll take bigger risks, and you'll be more courageously curious, and you'll be more calculated with what you're doing, and you'll start to see the world as an adventure and a playground and all filled with all these good things, instead of a place that goes, no, you can't have what you want, because you can. You just need to understand that you don't have the answers, and that's the right position to be in.
And like you'll never like have all the answers because you'll get into the next position and then you'll have to change and then you'll have more questions which need.
Yes.
So but it's so easy to get caught in that mindset where you're like you think you know everything, you know the ego is strong and it will just be like no it's okay because that will keep you comfortable.
Yeah,
right? So,
absolutely. It is so common. It was even me last week. I was like, no, can't do this, can't do that. I'm like, hold on. You're doing exactly.
And that's a good thing to know as well, that it's like even people that are the type of people to do public speaking and talk on the matter to help other people, they still get, I'd put my bets on that Tony Robbins still has days where he's just like, no, today's not good. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, and that's what makes them good at what they're doing.
We're all human,
people,
right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know what they are. So that's scary.
That's true. Yeah.
Walking around
that's
lizard people. Yeah.
Cool. So we've got to wrap it up. It was awesome having you on. What's the next couple of years looking like for Stick It?
Yeah, I want to head to America next year, which is really exciting, and do some speaking over there. So my really big want is to take it outside of Australia, the speaking that is. I've already been to New Zealand last year and spoke at a conference there, but spread it further than just this nice little bubble that I sit in now. That's next year. Right now, this year, I'm focusing on building my online course. And when I have that going really well, hopefully I can start to take a back seat in the marketing role I've got and sort of move that to one side and take more of a full-time position in Stick It itself. So from there, I'm hoping the speaking will just align. But it's a numbers game in relation to how much time it takes and how much energy you can put into it and all those types of things. So we'll see how it goes.
Love it. Well, for those listening, we will have all the links in the description if you want to check it out more. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me.